Hey guys, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Chris, and if you're watching this, you've most likely seen the 2018 thriller, Searching. And if you haven't, please click away. This is going to be completely spoiler-filled. I'm going to go into the ending of the film and maybe its little deeper meanings and clues. You can check out my spoiler-free review right here where I give my overall thoughts on the movie, my opinion, and give you a final rating on that. But enough with the intros, let's dive right into that ending for Searching. So by the end of Searching, we find out that Detective Vic, who had been working the missing case of person Margot Kim, had been feeding misleading information after misleading information to Father Dave Kim about his daughter. This was all in order to cover up the fact that her own son, Robert, was responsible for her disappearance. So how did we get to this point, and how heavily did the film clue you in on the actuality of what was going on in the movie? Pretty heavily, actually. I feel kind of stupid for not seeing it coming. So at the beginning of the film, we get an idea of what kind of father David Kim is. He's very involved in her education, asking about her latest test grade. I don't know about you, but my father never knew my test date. And also enforcing discipline and reminding her of her responsibilities around the house, like taking out the trash. My dad did do that one. And of course, being extremely clingy, hitting her with those double messages before she can even respond to the first message. Nobody likes that, Dad. But the clinginess can most likely be attributed to the fact that David Kim had lost his wife to cancer. We see this at the beginning of the film in the first 5 to 10 minutes, sort of like the beginning of Up. So being that Margot is the last meaningful thing in his life, it makes sense that he'd be overprotective of her. But we skip forward to the day she's missing, police are notified, the dad's freaking out, and the trash still has not been taken out. And that's when Detective Vic is put on the case and does everything in her true blue power to close this case fast. And she makes up 2 explanations for why Margot is missing. The first one I'll talk about: your daughter ran off because she's a loner and tired of your double messages. Pretty early on in her disappearance, the dad's put on a little task force to gather up as much information of his daughter as he can. He grandma-style hacks into her laptop and starts talking to her Facebook friends, creating a very impressive spreadsheet, I might add. Using this information, he finds out his daughter was kind of a loser. She would eat by herself, she wouldn't have any close friends, and when she would go out, it was mainly for tutoring purposes. He then hands this information off to the detective. She goes ahead and plants a fake ID on Margot, mentions the fact she did a big cash withdrawal, and the last footage of her is shown driving out of the city limits. Close and shut case. Your daughter ran away, man. I'm sorry, but with no body found or harmful play, there's nothing much we can do. However, David Kim does not accept this, knowing his daughter better, and continues digging deeper into her laptop. He stumbles upon an account that his daughter has of a chat room where people are randomly paired up from across the world and are free to chat with each other. Kind of like a chat roulette without all the dick. And he finds archive footage of Margot talking to a user by the name of Fish and Chips, which in a chat room has to be the most disgusting name you can have. And here's actually where we learn a lot about Margot and her inner thoughts. And that's that the loss of her mother took a heavy toll on her, and she's not really completely at peace with it. It's the reason she's grown quiet, alienated herself from other people, and her father has not helped out the situation. In one of the archive web chat videos, we see Margot mention that it's the anniversary of her mother's death or her birthday. I don't quite remember that part. You can let me know down below. And when her dad walks in, she's expecting him to talk about it or to mention something for them to celebrate it, but instead the guy wants to watch X Factor. I'll touch on that more in a bit, but we also see in these videos that she goes to a frequent safe haven by a lake. It's here where she does a lot of her webcam chats with Fish and Chips, and also just goes to relax or to relieve some stress. David Kim figures out where this location is, and it's on the same path that Margot was last seen driving on. He decides to follow that path, start searching the area, and finds her Pokemon keychain. Of course, he notifies police. They scatter the area and they find her vehicle in the lake. From here, they find the cash she withdrew, some of her belongings, and the father then passes along the information of her web chats and this possible person, Fish and Chips, who was the only one who knew of Margot's secret lake location. Detective Vic is shooketh at this point, thinking, man, why couldn't you give it a rest? And now she's forced to create a new story of why Margot's car was in that lake and where she might be. Leading us to her second explanation: your daughter was kidnapped and abused by a creep, and he did. We know later on that there's a picture of the detective with this supposed kidnapper and abuser, which can most likely let us piece together that he is a prisoner from an outreach program, and she probably blackmailed or threatened him to make that confession video that we later know is not true at all. Detective Vic knows very well who Fish and Chips is, but for the sake of saving her son, she makes up a story that, oh, she's just a waitress in Ohio or Utah. You don't need to worry about her. She was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, man. I'm sorry. At At this point, the father is broken in disbelief and is just now trying to come to terms that his daughter is gone. He begins to plan her memorial service and has been reached out by a group who's willing to live stream her funeral in order just to get Margot's story out there for the public to see. He agrees, and when he's finishing up the transaction on their homepage, he sees a familiar face. Fish and chips. And I actually have to be completely honest with you, as soon as they revealed that same face on the memorial service, I thought to myself, oh my god, is the funeral home killing people, making them famous by going missing, and then offering to do the live stream for free to drum up business? That's crazy rich Asians. That was a good movie. But no, the real twist turned out to be that Fish and Chips was the son of Detective Vic, who had had a big crush on Margot since they were kids, and used all the information he knew growing up with her to manipulate and make this character that she could confide in online. He made up a story that his mother was sick and needed to pay medical bills, so Margot decided to give him all her piano money in hopes to help out and make her situation better. The kid feels guilty for taking her money and just wants to come clean about who he is and how he feels about her, showing up in the middle of the night to that lake, and things just went wrong. She ended up falling, getting hit on the head, presumed dead, calls her mother, and decides to help his son commit murder and hide a body. This movie was just so amazing and brilliant in the fact that this was one of those movies where every scene had a purpose. Every line of dialogue, everything you were witnessing happened for a reason. Even more amazing with the comforting fact that Margot was alive by the end of the movie. Some people were confused about how she survived so long without food and water. Well, you know, when they were looking out for her in the woods and they had those search parties, one of those days they had to stop because it was raining. This gave Margot a few extra days of life because she was replenished and good to go for a little bit longer. But not just that, the film also did a lot of good trickery where it had me leading thinking it was gonna go this way, but if you watch the beginning of the movie, you would see that wasn't where it was going at all. And this is why foreshadowing and leaving clues at the beginning of the film is important, because think of it this way. We know at one point the movie wants us to believe that it's the uncle, the dad's brother, who is having this sexual relation with Margot, and it was probably getting too close. Maybe she got pregnant, so he needed to kill her. That's what was going on in my mind, and that's what was very apparent from those text messages. But we see, in fact, he was just letting her have some weed, and she was smoking together with her in a completely platonic family way. If they didn't show us that big jar of weed at the beginning of the movie when he's asking his brother for a recipe, that would have just seemed like a weird coincidence. Like, okay, you just make him a druggie now, giving that to his daughter? That's weird. But the fact that they planted that in our heads at the beginning of the film was awesome. Same thing goes with the detective. By the end of the film, you found out that it was her son and she was doing all this. It would seem really out of character, especially when we did some research on her in the movie, and we see that she's actually very praised, has tons of medals, does a lot of great work for the police department. It would seem out of character that all of a sudden she would go 100% to do this whole murder, mystery, fraud, blackmail to protect her son. But that little story they gave us of when her son was younger and going door to door collecting money for a fake charity, and then having his back when he was confronted on it, helping him with basically a crime, is a little seed they plant in our heads that this mom is willing to do anything for her child. In the same way that David Kim was willing to go to extreme lengths to find his daughter beating up a kid at a movie theater. And I'll even go back a little further. I mentioned at the beginning of the film, I think it was very important to have a deceased mother to explain some of the characteristic traits that were going on with the two characters. For one, with David Kim, when the mother died, he became very reserved, very held back in his emotions. It makes sense because, I mean, losing the wife can't probably be easy, and the whole film, when his daughter's missing, he barely even cries. The only time he cries is when he gets official news that she's probably dead. I'm gonna defend him and say in that scene where he wants to watch X Factor, he didn't forget her anniversary or birthday or whatever it was. He was just actually hesitant to mention it. We see at the beginning of the film, he was about to message his daughter the words, "Your mother would be proud of you." But for some reason, he decides not to do that. I think he's always wanting to talk about the mother and sort of bring it out, but it's just so painful to him, and he doesn't want to also bring that onto his daughter and remind her of the pain, thinking it's just something that she doesn't want to go through. In actuality, she really wants to talk about it and get it off her chest. I mean, it's also the same reason she quit her piano lessons. It was something she bonded with her mother, and to still do it after she died just didn't feel right. So it wasn't that she was stealing money from her dad or she just thought it was lame. It was just piano lessons was a real emotional connection she had with her mother. It was just brilliant in the fact that the detective was creating this false narrative of up, a fake ID, your daughter was doing this, your daughter was doing that, and she wasn't that popular in school just because she had her mother die, and that takes you to a pretty dark place, and that perfectly explains why she maybe didn't have the best friends in school. That line from the movie, I didn't know my daughter, you did, you just didn't talk with her, man. But anyways, that's just my explanation and deeper meaning of Searching. If you have any thoughts on the film, please let me know down below. I'm happy to discuss your thoughts. Please be sure to also follow me on Twitter at 3C Film Review. Give a like and subscribe to this channel. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.